So we actually have a variety of programs for the Esports Association. One is career readiness. So we actually work with the Career Center here to better prepare our association members to learn those life skills that they are going to need so that when they make that transition over to a career pathway.
Awesome, awesome. This guy, we gotta turn around. This guy wins almost every tournament we throw. I'm telling you. You gotta watch him live. He's gonna be something big. I'm telling
CSUDH Esports Association is centered in 4 domains: academics and research, community engagement, competition, and entertainment.
We're trying to make sure that the students are prepared for the future, that they understand the diversity that media offers now, and again, look beyond the traditional outlets.
They can gain fieldwork, partnerships, as well as potential job opportunities and in both the higher education and K-12 fields.
We believe that esports is a strategy and not an outcome. Our association is here to help anyone that is willing to learn how to take your gaming skills to the next level through a supporting community. If you are looking to showcase your production talents to help support our esports teams, then this is the association for you. We host online and on-site tournaments that will allow our members to showcase their competitive spirit. Our association broadcasts out our competition and practices to entertain our community as well as our global audience. We believe that by joining us, you will come out of the association feeling transformed and better prepared to transfer your skills into your career. Join today and begin to explore endless opportunities through our Esports Association here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. Just want to thank you all for tuning in live, and for those that watch this on demand later. Please remember that we do have other social media outlets that you can reach us by, and we thank you. First of all, we thrive on your feedback, and yeah, without any further ado, we do have a special guest that I'm excited to introduce. And our topic for today will be 1HP Performance and Esports Medicine Director, which will be presented by Dr. Caitlin McGee. And the talk session is Play More, Hurt Less. And so, Dr. Caitlin McGee, thank you so much for coming, and welcome.
Sure thing. I'm really glad to be here and chatting with you about this.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to first of all just thank you and just jump right into it. I love the concept of playing more and hurting less. So if you don't mind, please share with us prior to that, like what introduced you to gaming and esports?
Sure. So my background is kind of twofold here. I've got the medical background, I've got the gaming background. My medical background is I'm a physical therapist. My undergraduate degree is in neuroscience and exercise and sports science. So I come from a more traditional sports and kind of cognitive neuroscience type background. And then as a gamer, I actually started out doing in-game statistics for Dota 2, which I apologize to any of your League of Legends players, but I will forever hold Dota 2 in a more special place in my heart, just because it's where I started from. So I started out doing in-game statistics, kind of looking at the game very analytically. I still play the game, of course, as well. And about a year kind of into doing statistics, I realized that there was definitely a need for health and wellness education, information, intervention in esports, and I happen to be in a really good position to provide it. I certainly don't provide that alone. There are a number of professionals who now work in the scene and have for the past several years. I was also lucky enough that I joined kind of the esports scene right around the time that there was this shift from thinking of pain as an inevitable consequence of gaming to, I wonder if I'm doing something wrong if I'm having this much pain, to, maybe I could see somebody about this pain that I'm having and it'll hurt less and I can keep playing. And then since that time, kind of in the last 5 years, we've seen this growth from I should see somebody after I've already started having pain to I could see someone before I start having pain and prevent it in the first place and boost my performance in the process.
Hmm.
So we've really been taking kind of that we take what we can and what we need to, I guess, from traditional sports in terms of prevention, while recognizing that not everything in traditional sports applies one-to-one in esports, but we'll absolutely steal the useful knowledge from that arena.
Nice. Wonderful. Gosh, I mean, just getting yourself started. So, what caused you to pursue this degree? Was it something that you always knew you wanted to do? Was it something that was there something that you watched or got a chance to be a part of an experience, and then it led you to this field?
So, as far as physical therapy in general, I knew that I wanted to work in the medical field from a pretty young age. There's it's very cliche sounding, but I always wanted to help people.
Nice.
But I also I just liked the idea of knowing more about how the body works and how it functions, and helping other people know that too.
Mhm.
And I ended up in PT really for two reasons. One was I went through a good deal of PT myself because I played soccer for 16 years, including all the way through college,
Nice.
and faced my share of injuries in the process.
Oh,
Uh, and while I was kind of, figuring out what specific substantive medicine I was really interested in, I had a chance to shadow at Shriners Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, which is a very low cost hospital for families.
mm,
I had a chance to follow around a PT there for a day. And one of the things that I saw was a 10-year-old girl with cerebral palsy, who, after about as many years of physical therapy, I saw her take her first ever independent steps, which is a really powerful thing to watch. And it really kind of strikes you. As it turns out, if you go into physical therapy or any profession for those really big miracle moments, you're going to flame out. You're not going to stick around. You have to want to be there for the 10 years of work it took to get to those independent steps in the first place. And you
mm.
have to find that kind of journey and interaction and intervention just as valuable. And conveniently enough, I do. I find just as much joy in, a patient understanding the why of their condition or how they're going to get better from it or how they prevent it in the future, as I do from them actually getting better. Both of those are incredibly valuable. And I just really like the concept of using the body to treat the body. This is
Nice.
Physical therapists we are working for the ability to prescribe certain medications and certain types of imaging so we could do better diagnostics and treatment. But for the most part, our interventions are things that we do with our hands and things that our patients do with their bodies that we guide them through.
Excellent. I mean, well put. Gosh, and how amazing to share that story. Thank you for doing that and inviting us. And I bet. I mean, just alone, miracles like that don't necessarily always happen every day, but in turn, just knowing that you're being part of a helpful process that
Mhm.
will instill best life practices later down the road. Yeah, that's already life changing in itself. My goodness. So, and then you having to experience your share of injuries in playing a
Mhm.
sport that I'm imagining you loved
Very
or
much.
love. Yeah, I
Still
mean,
do.
yeah, no, also, and just I'll share with you, I'm a big soccer goer myself. Played for many years, so I'm right
Okay.
there with you. Had my first injury myself, broken collarbone.
Very nice. Gets you real
So
nauseous, that one.
yeah. So, when you play a sport and you break something or you sprain or you get surgery from it, and then you bounce back and go back at it, then you start realizing, yeah, I really have a heart for this
Yeah.
because you go at it again. You know what I mean?
And
So,
honestly, I think one of the really big differences that we see with traditional sports injuries and esports injuries is people take traditional sports injuries seriously. And
mm,
to be fair, some of them are quite traumatic, and some of them are just the
yeah,
injury classification traumatic as opposed to overuse.
right.
Um, but we tend to take those more seriously than we do those like repetitive strain injuries. And I think it's partly because there's this misconception that uh, the kind of work your body has to do in gaming is not as significant. It leads to that whole argument of are gamers really athletes or not? Um, and really, my opinion on the whole argument of whether or not gamers are actually athletes or not is, and pardon my French, who the fuck cares? Like whether they are athletes or not, they have a specific subset of needs that we
Right.
can provide, treatment for. They have a specific performance goal that we can help them meet. So whether or not we're classifying as them as athletes is really, it's relevant for like schools perhaps who are looking at what department do I slot this under and who does the budgeting
Right.
for it. But
Right.
when
Right.
it
Right.
comes
Right.
to, medical professionals and lay people looking at esports, we really shouldn't care quite so much whether it's, equivalent to being on the basketball court, and really should care more about what specific skills and abilities and strains does this person deal with.
No, absolutely right. Gosh, Caitlin, thank you. You couldn't, I mean, gosh, well said. It's the whole promotion of, hey, if this is where kids have passion about and it's causing some kind of movement and maybe perhaps an overstimulus of a muscle group, if you will. And I'm no professional, so I
It's all right. I know
essentially
what you're getting
keep
at.
it, I keep it general. And so, yeah, the really the goal is to help essentially help people reach those goals without, like you said, getting ahead of that problem before it becomes a problem, and informing best practices
Right.
to reaching what it is that one really loves or has passion in doing, whether it's
Exactly.
called a sport or not,
Yep.
or an athlete or not labeled as an athlete, what have
Right.
you.
And
Yeah, I
there's definitely
agree.
ways that we can use gaming as well for the promotion of general healthy behaviors. It's kind of like, how the cereal commercials, like for like Reese's Puffs and the stuff that is actually bad for you. Like the
Yeah,
commercials for those are part of a nutritionally complete breakfast, and it shows like all the other components of the breakfast. Like,
right,
look,
right.
gaming and esports can be part of a nutritionally complete lifestyle as long as you're balancing it out.
That's
And it
right. That's right.
happens. We know that a lot of the things that, are generally healthy behaviors that do good things for your body in general also are things that affect your performance in game. So especially if you're a competitor, it's every bit as relevant for a gaming competitor as it is for a competitive soccer player,
Right.
to pay attention to the having well-rounded nutrition, adequate hydration, adequate sleep, adequate movement and exercise. All of those things still boost your performance the same way that they boost performance for a soccer player.
Yeah, right on. And I couldn't agree again, what you're saying. It's so true to obtain not only that balance aspect of it, but yeah, when an injury does occur, what does that rehab really look like? And understanding that there are some benefits in using other muscles that perhaps weren't being as utilized heavily because right now the muscles are down or the bone at this moment needs to just go through a mending process, if you will. But yeah, and the gaming aspect, the balancing aspect of it all, it's like with anything, right?
Mhm.
It's always beneficial to have a good balance.
All
Um,
things in moderation, including
all things,
moderation.
exactly, all things moderately. That's the first I heard that. I love that. Um, so yes, I totally agree about that. And so please share with us. I mean, some of what you're doing with 1HP Performance is I know you're working with great people.
Mhm.
Please share with us some of the people that you're currently working with
Sure.
and how you're what have you seen that's most common as far as injuries. I know our students reached out to me and said to me, hey, could you ask Dr. McGee, what are some of the injuries or tendencies that you've seen that we should be aware of,
Mhm.
especially we're starting fall. This is heavy competition time as everyone is just ramping up. uh, and
All right, so let's get
yeah,
into that a little bit then. Right now, the 1HP team is 5.5 people. I say a half because we've got somebody who helps us out kind of on a part-time basis.
okay.
So there's me, there's Matt, there's oh wait, no, we're 6.5 now. I forgot. We just added somebody new.
Yeah.
There's me. There's Matt Wu, who is also a physical therapist.
Yeah.
There's Elliot, who is also a physical therapist with an athletic training background.
Hmm.
We've got Jake, who is currently getting a master's in sports psych and also has a background in kinesiology. And then we've just added from Canada a chiropractor as well. So we've kind of got like a whole team all working together. And then we do also have a hand specialist, Jess, like who she's an occupational therapist. Her specialty is in hand therapy, who also helps us out kind of on an as needed basis. But it's really nice having this whole kind of well-rounded team, especially because a lot of the work that we do isn't just treating people, it's preventing injuries, and we want to do that from a very holistic, well-rounded perspective.
Right.
uh, Plus there has been more and more work in the past few years, which is a good thing certainly, and we've needed more hands to manage it. So we do everything from working with high schools that are developing their own programs to helping professional teams design and implement health and wellness programming for their teams. We treat players, obviously, unsurprisingly. We run, when there isn't a global pandemic, we run community health booths at tournaments. When there is a global pandemic going on, we mostly just do, like guidance for the casters that they can share and like little bits
Ah,
that they can show on, ad breaks and things like that.
that's really cool.
In terms of what we see most commonly, the most common broad category of injury that we see is tendinopathy. Um, Tendinopathy really refers to any injury that affects a tendon. Tendons are what tie your muscles to a bone, so they are functionally what makes the bone move. So when I'm doing this, I'm using my extensor tendons, which are being pulled as a result of the contraction of these extensor muscles up here. That's what's moving my hand while I do that particular motion. So those tendons, both extensor and flexor, are the things that we see kind of variations of injuries within those particular tendon structures.
Hmm.
There's different ways that a tendon can be injured. A tendon can be injured in inflammation ways. So we can see tenosynovitis, inflammation of the sheath that goes around the tendon so it glides smoothly. There can be inflammation of the tendon itself. And there can be non-inflammatory injuries of tendons, which is why people probably hear the word tendinitis a lot more than they hear tendinopathy. If you
Yeah.
hear a medical professional using tendinopathy, it's just because we're trying to be more accurate and acknowledging that not all tendon injuries have an inflammation component. That isn't always what's going on there.
Interesting.
Tendinopathies are usually an overuse injury or an under preparation injury. I like classifying them as under preparation, even though the technical term would be overuse. The reason I like calling them under preparation injuries is because I think that way it's clear that, hey, this is something your body could be prepared to do. It's just that it wasn't at this particular moment. But we could train it up to being prepared. It just wasn't prepared right now, as
Right.
opposed to overuse, which kind of sounds like, this is an inevitable consequence of how much gaming you're doing. You're just going to happen to have this.
Right.
Most of the injuries that we treat are preventable. And some of the really big things that we see that people can be looking out for. Let's see. If you start to have pain, keep an eye on what new things happened around the time your pain started. Did you
Okay.
change mouse? Did you change sensitivity? Did you increase your practice time? Did you change what desk you're using? Did you change the height of your chair? Did you help a friend move into their apartment? Did you get a new dog that likes to pull on the leash when they're walking? Consider anything new or different that happened around that time. If you can't come up with anything new or different, it probably is the kind of thing that developed over time, as opposed to one specific kind of straw breaking the camel's back type incident.
Right.
Uh, but the more you can pay attention to what your body is telling you and when it's telling you those things, the more likely it is that A, you'll be able to address things quickly when they do come up, and B, you won't be developing those really more chronic, harder to treat, takes a while to get better kinds of injuries.
Okay, excellent. Gosh, thank you for sharing that. I essentially noticed that over time you start feeling these little, if you will, it almost starts to creep up on you.
Mhm.
Those little sharp pains, if you will, and even just trying to classify what does that pain feel. Does it feel like it's tingling? Does it feel like it's daggering? Or even as somebody's trying to classify that to you, how that feels, is there precise terminology that one has to use, or what does that process look like, if you don't mind?
So when
Says,
I'm trying to find out about like the source or the cause of
yeah,
someone's pain, I'm definitely asking about what the type of pain is, because different types of pain tend to indicate different structures. So for example, if someone's telling me they're having like numb tingling pain, I'm thinking nerves. If someone's telling me they're having burning kind of achy pain, I'm thinking tendons. If someone's telling me they have sharp stabbing pain, I'm thinking either you're actually getting stabbed or your muscles probably involved. The other thing to keep in mind too is that as much as pain is a helpful indicator, it's not just pain that you pay attention to. It's things feeling tight, things feeling loose or unstable. Those the kind of fixation on pain can definitely be detrimental, because if you're only fixated on when your body hurts, there's a tendency to pathologize your pain, right? Oh God, there must be something wrong with me because it hurts.
right.
Sometimes pain is a normal and natural consequence of you doing something that your body was not happy about you doing. It's not a long-term issue. It's the kind of thing that, you add some stretches in and you're fine. It's when your pain interferes with your function, or your tightness or your pressure, So don't just look at what sensations you're feeling, look at the impact they're having. Are they impacting your ability to game? Are they impacting your ability to do your work at school? Are they impacting your ability to like do everyday tasks around the house? That's when it's really kind of important to pay attention to. When you first start feeling pain, yes, absolutely consider, is there something I could be doing that'd be better for my body, ways that I could be preventing further injury? But don't let the fact that there is pain make you worried that you've already got an injury.
Yeah, right on. In that is the normal tendency. It's like I go into a point that I start feeling the pain, and now this is the result of the pain. And at that point, it might have been prevented if I had started indicating perhaps this lack of balance, if you will, and maybe just doing movements that my body wasn't prepared for, maybe the preventative measure approach, which in turn, I always try to stay personally myself into stretchy mode. Hey, if I can take a couple stretches, let your back kind of loosen up a little bit so things don't get so tense from whatever it is that we're doing from a sitting standpoint, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the single best things that people can do is not get fixated on having trying to maintain perfect posture, right? That like sitting straight up, shoulders back, chest out. Yeah, I could be military on parade right now. Yes, that is a good posture. It's relatively neutral. Um, but really more important than any one optimal posture is consistent movement. The pithy saying for this one is your best posture is your next posture. So when you're sitting, are you consistently changing position? Are you, after a couple of matches, standing up, walking around, and twisting your back, stretching your hips a little bit? Are you moving your arms around in a way that isn't just, at your keyboard or at your console with holding your controller? Um, are you changing the position that you sit in? You've probably seen me fidget a whole bunch throughout this talk already. I've changed from sitting cross-legged to sitting with both feet on, not technically on the ground because I'm short and I have a stool underneath my desk in order to make it the right height. Um, to sitting with one leg crossed over the other and stretching my hip out a little bit. Those changes of position are even better than any one single posture could ever be. If you have to be in one posture, yes, a nice neutral, upright, back supported, arm supported posture is great. But even more important than that is, are you moving and
right.
how often?
Yeah, well said. I mean, that's so true. I sometimes think just the natural fidgeting, quote unquote, it's almost like, I don't know, growing up as a kid, it's like you were told by parents, stop fidgeting.
Fidget
Well,
more.
yeah, there you go. It's a change, it's a paradigm shift, even just in school.
Yeah.
Quit moving around. So it's almost like, that whole movement piece, it's like the body's telling
Mhm.
us, hey, you need to move because we need to feel natural.
Yeah.
uh,
And that's actually one of the things that we know about learning, especially in kids. A lot of what we see with child development is that limitations in mobility lead to limitations in learning. The more someone can interact with their environment, the more they learn, which is how a lot of folks with physical disabilities end up behind their peers in school. It's not because they're any less intelligent or less capable than their peers. It's just they haven't been able to interact with the environment as much. There's actually, I'm very proud of this particular thing because it came out of my alma mater, University of Delaware. There's something called Go Baby Go, which teaches kind of communities and parents how to design basically power wheelchairs, but they're taking existing equipment from like Toys R Us, like those kids' cars and stuff, and how to modify them to make it a little bit therapeutic, but basically make it so that hey, this kid can now interact with their environment in a way that all their peers can. They're getting the same stimulus and learning.
how cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that like they run workshops like all around the country. They run them internationally now.
Oh, wow.
They're really cool with regards to how they're affecting child development and how they're making sure that kids are able to move and interact.
Gosh, Kaylin, that is so cool. The promoting of movement and just even now more than ever, especially even if you feel like you're in these confined spaces, there's a lot of movements we can still do.
Absolutely.
Uh, and I did hear just so much of promotion of how kids just naturally move, even if they look funny, right? We may think, oh no, you gotta for parents or for, adults that are out there thinking, oh, I got to correct this and correct that, and you got to be this way, it's almost like, no, the child is exploring their environment
Yep.
to see what feels natural, and they're going to learn from that experience and then start kind of
One of the
the body
most
self-corrects it.
important things that kids can do is fall.
I
They
love
need to
it.
learn how to fall. If your kid is falling over, it means they are moving around enough in their environment that they have an opportunity to fall over. It's a good thing. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously make sure there aren't any sharp or pointy objects around, but let them
Right.
fall. That's
Yeah.
how they figure out movement.
I love it. I love it. It's so much active learning that, again, in turn to esports,
Mhm.
that's very much what esports is about. It's you're actively doing something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's super cool. Go baby, go! Right? Did I
Go
get
baby
that?
go.
Okay, I will definitely look that up and recommend for all those that are watching to check them out. Excellent. And Kaylin, I wanted to ask you something. You mentioned earlier, as traditional sports, you typically see almost a medical staff, if you will, on the sidelines, if you will. Are you seeing more medical staff, especially in the esports arena space, in those competitive spaces?
So yes and no.
Okay.
We do definitely see that there are teams that are investing in health and wellness for their players. There are teams that have a PT on staff. Matt, for example, works for the LA Gladiators. Before that, he was with Immortals. We see teams like Complexity teaming up with the Dallas Cowboys, getting access to their facilities, including gyms, nutrition, being right across the street from some really top tier medical facilities. Um, we see more and more medical providers in the community. I'm thinking of Untechable Performance, which is a group that works in the fighting games community. There's Dr. Lindsay Migliori, Gamer Doc, who works in the streaming and esports space. There's lots of folks involved in the scene who have a wide degree of medical perspectives. I'm also thinking of AIM Labs, which is run by a neuroscientist, and the person that I work with most often there, Taylor, is also got a pretty great background in kinesiology and exercise science. But a lot of the ways in which teams are investing in medical staff definitely seems to be more performative, than kind of integrative. And I get it. I totally understand why, because there's a perception going in about what a medical provider will provide for your team, and what kind of the needs, what kind of budget you should be setting aside for health and performance in your team's involvement. And then there's so much more to it than I think laymen tend to expect is involved in providing preventive and reactive care, for competitors. Um, so there's definitely, esports is in an interesting spot in terms of growth as an industry. There are definitely teams which are really making the long-term investments and doing it slowly and over time and in a way that is sustainable. And there are definitely teams that want to be at that point but aren't there yet. But they think if they put their name on it, maybe they'll kind of have gotten there by perception rather than actual investment. So there's definitely still a lot of work to be done in esports, which is both a good and a bad thing. I mean, the bad thing is there's a lot of work to be done. The good news is, since esports is less established, there's so much more that we can do to change how the structure works. We can take what works from traditional sports, but we don't have to keep all of it. We can take what works from a traditional medical model in outpatient orthopedics, but we don't have to take all of it. We can also take from other relevant fields. We can draw from the research that exists on air traffic controllers and how they maintain cognitive precision while sitting for long periods a day. We can take what we know from performers like musicians, and we can take what we know from kind of those people who bridge the gap between competition and entertainment. So I'm looking at circus performers, WD performers. There's so many different places we can be drawing inspiration and information from, to be building what we want this esports medicine infrastructure to look like, and how it's going to provide the best possible care to the patients within the scene. Downside is it does take a lot of work. It'd be nice to have the kind of established structure that traditional sports have, but hey, at least we get to tweak this one.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's so true. I mean, we've learned so much, and there's been so many years of research in just traditional sports and how it keeps evolving too, with even just pairing some of the technology that has helped recover some of these athletes.
Mhm.
And how you just mentioned, we're in this interesting spot right now, which it really just presents more opportunity to see what technologies out there that can help enhance the medical performance side for an e-athlete to say, hey, I can get back into my competitive spirit and nature of going back at 100%, gain my HP levels, if you will, and and then be able to learn from other industry and perspective that can match some of that correlation and say, look,
Right.
this makes a lot more sense to study in that perhaps we wouldn't have put in so much time and effort if esports didn't come about, giving us this new perspective. And in turn, what I've always loved about just sports in nature is, you know, what one sport is doing, it could relate to another sport. Each sports are always looking for ways to find ways to recover fast, right? And essentially, if there's something neat and strategic that has helped this particular athlete in this category of game title or performance play or sport, if you will, in traditional side, it can be shared as open knowledge to say, hey, look, this is something that we've noticed, and we're able to help under this big umbrella of getting people back out there and active to doing what they love.
And
And yeah.
I think kind of the analog here in esports is a reflection on why it's so very important that we have a variety of professionals who happen to be interested in esports. Like I did not specifically train in esports physical therapy. I'm a physical therapist who developed an interest in esport and studied it accordingly and, intervened accordingly. Um, Having professionals who have, a breadth of knowledge in their particular field, but also an interest in esports, well, they're bringing that knowledge from a different perspective. And we're able to build that more kind of well-rounded structure as opposed to just that narrow-sighted, well, this is how it is in other communities, this is how it's going to be here. Which is why it is really important that we have so many different types of fields involved in and interested in esports at any level, but particularly at a collegiate level.
Yeah, so true. And again, what I love is that, yeah, if I may ask, Kaylin, like when you were going, let's say in high school, did you have an esports program growing up?
We did not. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school that had 400 people in it. My graduating
Oh,
class was 96.
oh no
96 people, not 1996. I'm not that old. Uh,
way. Yeah, no, I got that.
and I think let's see, I'm vaguely remembering our computer lab. It was the big, bulky, like the CRT like monitors, like those real the cathode ray old style ones.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. I remember those.
That's what we had. We definitely did not have any video games on them. The only video games I played in high school actually were, let's see, I played Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time,
Oh no way.
and
Yeah.
I used to program the. Do you remember like the TI-83 calculators and the TI-84s? I used to program
Yes.
games on them. I used to program games on my TI-84.
Oh my gosh.
I
Okay,
played
that is
Block
typical.
Dude, so much Block Dude.
Oh man, those were the days where we had to hide, right? We didn't want the math teacher walking by and say,
So,
"What are you doing with your calculator?"
well, the
I'm
other thing that I
doing
did was
calculus right now.
I figured out how to like pre-program formulas in there. So like when I had exams, I just used the formula that I'd plugged into my computer. Like, look, the way that I figured was if I understand this well enough to write a program to do it for me, I understand this well enough to pass the test. It's fine.
I totally agree. Totally agree. I'm so for that. Oh my gosh, you're bringing me back too, because I'm now thinking nostalgic wise, the TI-83s. Oh my gosh.
I still have mine. It's sitting in my drawer over there. It doesn't
Oh
work
my god.
anymore. I'm trying to figure out why it's not working because I really want to play Block Dude now.
See, I mean, it's your first like game emulation that you ended up hacking, if
You
you
know,
will.
actually, so I briefly touched Ocarina of Time in high school, and when I say briefly touched, I mean literally we were vacationing in North Carolina, and I played it on a day that was rainy because they happened to have a console system there. The next time I played that game was in college on my friend's laptop because she was running an N64 and emulator. There's this one boss in Ocarina
Nice.
of Time where the way that you kill him is you have to stun him, and then run around this wheel that is in the middle that you guys are both running around and hit him on the
Yes.
butt. That's like his only vulnerable area. Do you know how hard it is to run a perfect circle with WASD? It's really hard.
It is.
Really, really hard.
Oh my gosh. And I'm very familiar with the emulations, especially on the laptop or computer.
Uh-huh.
Man, it wasn't designed for it,
No,
but yet we like forced
we're gonna make
the
it work.
control settings to do it for us. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then I
Those are
discovered Dota, which was actually made for a computer, and life was better.
yeah, exactly. That is super cool. I love the humble beginnings, right? It's
Yeah.
like how did we get started to begin with? Where did the interest start, or and
What's
it
our
leads to
origin
that way.
story? Our
The
superhero
origin
origin
story,
story.
exactly. I love that. And at the same time too, Caitlin, like what you and your team are doing at 1HP, it's so neat to say that, hey, this wasn't something that medical professionals were looking into until we started seeing this need of, hey, there's a lot of people that are going about this, having injuries, and now are at a point at being at risk. How can we prevent that risk?
Mhm.
And you're really setting that bar, if you will, and pushing that charge forward. And again, it all stems from helping people,
Right.
which,
It's
yeah,
really great that on the one hand, it's tough that esports is as grassroots as it has been sometimes. On the other hand, it does mean that the kinds of people who end up sticking around in esports are the kind of people who are in it because they are genuinely invested in the community. That's not to say that there aren't people who are in it for the money, because there absolutely are. But the kind of people who stick around are the people who like genuinely care and genuinely want this all to succeed and want to see what role they can play in helping things succeed.
right on. Well said. Right on. Yeah, it's almost like if you stay with it long enough, you start realizing you probably went around the world for the same people that, hey, I remember you. Oh, hey, we did this together. Hey, you were there, and just you make those connections where you realize, gosh, you could tell that there's some level of gaming that really helped their personal growth,
Right.
whether in the relationship side or in their own developmental side. Everybody has that story, and I've always loved to hear that, because it's what really, I think, motivates. It's their internal compass, right? It's where it keeps guiding them, if you will.
And I think it is really important to acknowledge too that a lot of people who work in esports don't do it full time,
Mm,
or don't do it kind of as their full paying job. So, for example, I subsidize my esports work by working full time at an outpatient orthopedics PT clinic.
right.
Um, there are a lot of people who are working jobs in order to sustain themselves in esports until they get to a point where esports can sustain them.
Mm,
And so I think it's for anybody who's interested in a career in esports, it does really need to be acknowledged that that is, for at least some people, necessary in order to exist in this community. But I think one of the things that we're continuing to work towards, especially people who've been here far longer in esports than I have, are trying to make this a community that is, you can work a full-time job here and get a living wage off of it, as opposed to
right,
you got to
right,
do
right,
something else or you can't afford to stay. Um,
right.
but it's anybody who's interested in getting into esports, like, it's really important that they know that, like, you need to have another plan. It can't be your only plan. There's got to be something else. It's way better to have a solid depth of knowledge in a field that you can apply to esports than to get a esports specific knowledge of that field. um,
Well
because
said. Yeah.
you're gonna need to eat and pay rent and do all those
Right.
adulting things that nobody likes to talk about doing.
Right. No, good point. And I love that you shared that, because it is in the grassroots, it's, if you will, and because it's in its humble beginnings, if you will, in many aspects. It's telling that the opportunity is, look, you can study a discipline out there, and you can inform and try to bridge something that you really love to do. But it doesn't mean that you just focus on just one particular area. It presents its opportunities, but again, it's coupled with a full broader range of what
Right.
else you could do. And again, that's why I really like what you said earlier about, even though it sounds cliche, but at the end of the day, esports is a people-driven business,
Mhm.
if you will. It's an enterprise that people. It's about the people, and the minute we take people out of it, then it doesn't become special anymore. And so, yes, helping people, there'll always be a need for that. And yeah, and it can be taken in so many directions.
Yeah,
And what
it is way better to have a skill set that happens to be applicable to gaming than to have a gaming only skill set, because you're stuck if you have a gaming only skill set. If you have a skill set that's broadly applicable, you can work in a variety of areas in esports, some of which pay better than others. You can work in a variety of non-esports areas that allow you to, make enough money that you can do what you want to do in esports.
Mm.
It's it's really key to recognize that the most important thing isn't to know esports inside and out if you want to work in esports, but
Right.
to know your thing inside and out and figure out how it fits in the esports. Like, what can you contribute, and how does the thing contribute value to this community?
Right, right, exactly. I love that. It's what is it that you can do that can bring value, and it's almost like if you think about it, you know, and get other people's perspective, you can find something that may
Absolutely.
not be fully developed just yet, but you can find something that can help inform, and every little thing counts.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of, because it's not out there and there is no profession that you can type up on a Google search, that it's not out there, right? People are always working in the background trying to see how they can bring something like this.
Right. And it's, the same kind of people who can work in, the filming and kind of lighting and sound studio parts of television. They can also do that work in esports. That's absolutely applicable in both arenas.
Oh yeah.
Physical therapy is obviously a degree that can be applied across multiple arenas. Esports just happens to be one of them.
Right.
There's a lot of fields that you can that you can use in gaming. It's actually one of the things that I'm wary about with the rise of esports degrees is,
Mm,
does that focus on esports specifically
mm,
mean that we're going to be getting less well-rounded people coming in and trying to work? Are we going to
mm,
end up with people whose skill sets are only applicable to esports and who aren't able to draw on that outside experience, which we can then use to make this community and this infrastructure more
mm,
solid, more robust, and more well-rounded? And I think there are definitely some institutions which are designing esports programs mostly to capitalize on everybody's interested in esports
mm.
right
I see.
now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, obviously, the club and the varsity competitive things, I strongly support that at any institution. It's more of the majors, the degree programs that, like, I'm a little bit wary about.
I see. Yeah. And I totally understand where you're coming from. And in my thought and in that is essentially disciplines that we currently offer. I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel, if you
Yeah.
will. I see it as, hey, there's always going to be a need for that basis alone of helping others. In what capacity, that is where we get to have these array of disciplines that we currently have and look into that and say, hey, how can you inform your practice, if you will, into something that you do love?
Right.
If it's esports, great. If it's something else, wonderful.
Right.
And
I
then we
really
can
think like something like
build
an
that portfolio.
esports minor makes a lot of sense, because
Yeah,
it's, hey, you've got this depth of knowledge about your particular field of study, but
right,
also you've got, a base of knowledge about
right.
esports, and you can then consider, how do I apply my major to my minor here?
You got it. Baseline knowledge is super key so that you're
Sure.
not coming in, I don't know, cold, if you will.
Yeah.
But it helps a little bit to
Yeah,
understand.
definitely. Like,
Um,
there's an understandable degree of skepticism in the gaming community about non-endemic people coming in. Like, I
right.
faced a degree of skepticism when I was coming in. And honestly, part of the reason why I was accepted as readily as I was, one, I was already doing in-game statistics and competing in
Right.
Dota. I captained an amateur team. We run our league one year. It was pretty great.
Nice.
But two, because I was genuinely invested in the community.
Mhm.
And so me being genuine came across as being genuine about that community. And one
Right.
of the ways that happened was, I was at the first tournament that I was ever working, and I'm putting working in quotes here because I wasn't getting paid for it. I was doing it pro bono to just say, like, hey, this
Right.
is a thing you totally need at your tournaments. I'm going to prove it to you. Uh, it was Pound 2016, which was held in Virginia. And I was watching Nintendo play. Nintendo mains Ice Climbers, which are a paired
Oh.
heroes that, one of the things they can do is they can chain grab you.
Mm.
And they wobble you back and forth. And it's the most annoying thing ever, especially if you're not terribly good at the game and you get wobbled frequently.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
watching him play, and I mumble under my breath, fucking ices, because, like, I know that feeling and I hate it. And Hungrybox happened to be standing next to me, looked over, and he just started cracking up, which
Right.
then prompted a whole conversation about, our experiences in gaming and like, what I was doing there. And, oh, you do health in esports. The thing that was valuable there wasn't so much that, I was a PT in that moment, but I was somebody who belonged in the community. I understood what the community needed and wanted and made jokes about. And so I think anybody who's going to work in esports, in addition to recognizing I may have to do other things in order to afford working in esports, is knowing that you can't fake it. You either understand that community or you don't. You're either interested in learning more or you aren't. People will want to teach you more if you want to learn more. It's one of the things people like to do most. People absolutely like to tell you how to play their game or who's the best main in it or why that's the best main. Talk
Right.
to you about frame traps. Uh,
Yeah.
they want to talk to you about why one map is better than another map for a particular agent. They want to tell you why one hero is better than another in the off lane. Um, People want to tell you that information if they know that you want to learn and that you
Right.
aren't just there to be there. So if you are genuinely interested in being involved in esports, if you want to take what you know outside of esports and apply it in esports, then get to know what the community needs. Don't just assume that the thing that you know is applicable here.
Right.
There are definitely things that I've had to unlearn as a PT in terms of this doesn't apply here. I don't need to use this. I don't need to bring this to the table. The most important thing if you're taking your skill set into esports is listening,
Love
finding
it.
out what the community needs in the first place.
Yeah, love it. Gosh, well said. It's so key. It's so true to every industry. If we can just
Absolutely.
listen and serve and then press the repeat button, that's it. In a nutshell, but not to
Listen
say
and do.
yeah, listen and do.
Done.
Done.
Slather repeat.
It just holds true to almost anything you can do in life. It's so true. The community's asking for this, and if we do just, like you said, meet them in the middle, if you
Right.
will,
Meet
and
people where
just
they are.
yeah, exactly. Get to feel for what it is that they do, even kind of simulate that experience, if you will. Maybe you get involved into a game yourself so that you can see, hey, these are some of the tendencies I've noticed too, even myself. I'm sure I'm not the only one. And then trying to unpack a little bit more of that study. And those are just, just basic learning concepts of, hey, if I really want to serve the people, I really got to be with the people.
Yeah.
um, in many aspects. So absolutely. And I guess for those that are just, I'm always mindful of those that are trying to learn, right? They're first time viewers of any esports programming or any development aspects of it. And I can say that in some cases, some will say, gosh, it sometimes feels like it could be a little overwhelming. I have no idea what's going on. It's almost like it's a whole lingo I have to learn, and I don't think I'll ever get there. How do I get started? I guess that's really the question that gets asked,
Mhm.
and one doesn't know. But for you yourself, if you had to give them advice, what would be your best advice?
So I would definitely say if you're looking for basic information about the game, go to those game specific subreddits and look up their beginner guides or their intro guides. The one that I used when I came to Dota was, and anybody in this channel who's watching right now who plays Dota knows exactly which one I'm about to say. It's Purge's guide. Welcome to Dota, you suck. Uh, it's it's a fantastic guide. It really is. It's like it's funny and like it explains things in a simple and easy to access way. It explains what terms mean, and there are absolutely things like that for other games. Watch people's streams. So watch streamers of that particular game. If you want to get into playing, I don't know, Melee, Super Smash Bros. Melee, watch like Hungrybox stream or watch, Zane stream sometime. Watch people who interact with their community and tell you things because you can absolutely talk in their chat and be like, I'm super new to this. What does that word mean? And people will be happy to tell you what that word means. Some of them will also make fun of you because that's gaming. But if you are genuinely interested in it, subreddits are a great place to start. Most of them have beginner guides posted. Looking at streamers, especially streamers who advertise themselves as beginner friendly. There's a wealth of knowledge to be found on Twitter, certainly, if you're following, if you know where to follow. I'd say start out by following like, big names in the game. Then you'll start to see the kinds of people who interact with their threads, who, they might have more information that they're able to speak to you on a beginner level about. Look for Discord channels about your specific game. There are absolutely like, groups that are, beginners learning to play Dota, or beginners learning to use, there's a new mod out for Melee, Slippy, which lets you do net play essentially in a way that isn't absolutely terrible. And that has a Discord server. If you play something like, say, Guild Wars or World of Warcraft, and you're learning to raid, there are absolutely like Raid Academy and Intro Raid Discord servers that you can hop into and learn terms, learn mechanics, things like that.
Right.
But really, all of these things boil down to be in the community, find where the community is, and be there. When there isn't, again, a global pandemic going on, especially for the fighting games community, where the community is often at locals. There are probably locals happening in your area when there isn't a pandemic going on.
Right.
There's community land centers. There's host people's basements sometimes. There's hubs of kind of where the activity is. It's usually centered around a major city. I know New York's got a thriving scene. Tri-state in general has a thriving scene. Most big cities have a couple of different, community specific land centers.
Right.
Or a generalized land center that can be used for multiple games. Near me, there's Xanadu. In New York, there's OS. There's, separate ones for NorCal and SoCal, and so help you God if you mix up which one is where.
I know. I was gonna say.
They're when they do like regional competitions against each other, it gets intense.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I know from.
But
yes.
find where that games community is and be there. That's the best way to do it. The Reddit's good. The Reddit's a good option. Discord's a good option. Twitter's a good option.
I love it. You're just meeting them again, where the gamers are, where the community is, and how to get essentially started, and being open to it and just saying, hey, you know what? I am a beginner and I am trying to literally learn as I go. Excellent. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll tell you, Caitlin, this has been a lot of fun. We're almost at that time.
This was.
But beforehand, if you will, I always do this with everybody. If you could give to our community just some words of wisdom to take us home.
All right. Most important words of wisdom. Always wear sunscreen. That applies to everybody. If anybody knows what song that's referencing, I'll be very impressed. You're probably not drinking enough water. You should drink some more of it. If you are feeling thirsty right now, go get a glass of water. Seriously. Not the grody one that you've left sitting on your desk because you swore you were going to drink more water. Go get a new one and drink that glass of water. Relax your shoulders from down around your ears. They've probably gotten tight. They do that a lot, especially when you're stressed. And there are some very stressful things happening right now. You're probably going to want to do that more often. So set yourself a reminder on your phone. Set yourself reminders on your phone for everything. Seriously, it's the best way to go. If you want to make a new habit, which you probably do, something healthy that you want to implement, set a timer for an hour. When that timer goes off, do the thing. Whether the thing is, I'm going to get up and walk around for 2 minutes. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to do 10 jumping jacks. I'm going to relax my shoulders. I'm going to stretch my legs. Whatever it is, set a timer. And over time, it will become the kind of thing that you do habitually and instinctually. But to start out with, set a timer. Give yourself a reminder. Don't try to change everything at once. It is far harder. You will probably fail at it. You'll become discouraged and think, I can't fix any of these things, so why should I even bother trying? Try fixing one. Start small. Drink one more glass of water in a day. Eat one more vegetable. Take, 1 5-minute walk. And in the process, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. A 5-minute walk is better than a no-minute walk, even if it's not as good as a half-hour run. A half a glass of water is better than no glass of water, even if it's not as good as, 8 glasses of water in a day. You only ever need to make incremental improvement to be improving. So again, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. So do the thing, regardless of how well you do it. It will get better with time. It's a lot easier to build once you've set that base in the first place. And if the way you set the base is, I take half a glass of water right now, and 2 weeks from now, I'm drinking 2 glasses of water consistently in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, that's how you get there. You start small. Make it something that you can implement and actually stick with. And last one, when it comes to exercise, I have often been asked, what is the best exercise for me to be doing?
Mm.
Best exercise for you to be doing is whatever one you will consistently do. If you like running, like me, great. We're all slightly crazy and we should continue running. If you don't like running, that is okay. It probably means you're less crazy than I am. Find the thing you do like doing. If the thing that makes you want to move is rock climbing, go rock climbing. If the thing that makes you want to move is hiking, go hiking. If the thing that makes you want to move is Ring Fit or, HTC Vive or, Oculus Quest, great. Use those things. Sure, there are certain metrics that we should all be aiming to hit when it comes to how much moving you do in a day. But far more important than doing one optimal kind of exercise is doing exercise consistently. Again, don't let perfect be the enemy of good here. Do whatever thing it is that's going to make you keep moving.
Gosh, I love all of that. My gosh, I'm going to have to play this on replay and just remember all of the great words of wisdoms you just shared. Thank you again. This is Dr. Caitlin McGee, and please be sure to reach out to her in our on-demand version if you're wanting to catch this afterwards. And thank you so much for everything you just shared to our community and to the greater whole community as well. We wish to have you back sometime soon.
Sure.
And thank you everybody for tuning in, and we're saying goodbye for now. Bye.
All right, have a good night, guys.